And welcome to the Breakfast Zone. It's Peter Crone!
Peter Crone is in the house! Pedro, how are you, mate?
I didn't quite expect that fanfare, but if I knew that happened every time, I'd come more often.
No, you can come whenever you like. Let's just get straight in, because we're not pushed for time, but you normally have a long form, an hour and a half with our good friend Rongan or whoever.
Yes.
By the way, we play some Rongan Chatterjee clips. You've been on his show a few times. One of the most downloaded guests that he's ever had on. Let's get straight into, if you don't mind. We'll talk about you in a bit. I want to hook people in first.
Let's go to the meat and potatoes.
So first of all, the big communication myth.
Yes.
Tell us about the best communicators and what is their superpower.
Well, actually, if you break down the word communication, most people think of talking, but actually we're born with two ears and one mouth. So the best communicators listen.
Okay, listen. Give somebody a good listening to.
Give someone a good listening to.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I've yet to meet anybody. Well, that's a bit of a harsh statement, but most people are already listening through a filter of self-protection. So they can't actually hear what people are saying. It's all reactive, which is fine. We're designed to survive. It's just not a very fun game to play.
Yeah. So important.
Yeah.
Tell us about the difference and similarities between precursors and triggers.
Precursors and triggers.
So
Okay.
we can be triggered into something, or we can. There are precursors that lead us down an avenue that we don't want to go down, but our environment is set up against us almost.
I would say they're synonymous. I mean, in a world of vibration and frequency, without getting too deep out of the gates, but as Tesla said, if you want to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. So precursors and triggers to me are born of the same ilk, right? Like, so whatever you get triggered by is because of your precursor condition. So you listen through these conditioned ways of relating to life because of what mum and dad said usually, but it's not their fault. That's another illusion. And therefore, you're not looking through your eyes, but you're looking through your perspective. And anything that comes across as a perceived threat, you're going to have something to say about.
Yeah, you got loads to say about it. We want to hear it. It's so cool.
Yeah.
What were you up to yesterday?
Yesterday, I was at the Health Optimization Summit, which is a fancy way of saying a bunch of, I think, 4,000 people who are ardently committed to being the best versions of themselves, especially in the arena of health. So I was one of the speakers there, in my most graceful way, telling them, don't worry about the infrared sauna, the cold plunge, the cryogenic, and the peptides, but maybe just free your mind and you might find vitality.
It's so funny because we I don't know if you know him, but Lawrence Van Lingen's a friend of ours, mine and Tasha's, as you are.
Yeah.
More of Tasha's than mine, but that can change. Of course it can. And Lawrence, he came over. He's a running coach.
Okay.
And he came over. He lives in Colorado now. He's born in South Africa. And he got to coaching us as a mate. He was a house guest.
Yeah.
But he just can't help. The best wizards. He's a proper wizard. Like you're a proper wizard.
Yeah.
And he spends some time around us, and he helps me run freer. So I'm open chested. I'm flying. I'm not a quick runner, but I feel like I'm quick when I'm around him.
Yeah.
I said, "Oh no, I can't wait. I can't wait for the London Marathon next year, because this is going to be a whole different experience for me running. With this mindset, with this heart set, if you like.
Yeah.
He said, well, you better be prepared. I said, why? He said, yeah, you might not even want to run it. I said, why? He said, you might not feel you need to. I'm like, no, don't be silly. And I'm now sitting thinking, I don't really mind anymore. And that's sort of what you're saying about the biohacking
Absolutely,
thing.
yeah. True freedom, I say, is when you've got nothing to hide and nothing to prove.
Yeah.
But that's a beautiful metaphor, right? In terms of, I don't know his work, but he sounds fascinating. But I started in physical transformation, right? I traveled the world with the who's who of celebrity fame in Hollywood and kept them looking immaculate for their celluloid appearances. And people can understand that you live within the confines of your own physiology, right? So you talk about running. If you've got tight hamstrings, tight psoas, all the things I'm sure he looks at, your posture, your lean, all of these things, you can only function within the limits of your own anatomy, right? People can understand that. I work with a lot of golfers, baseball players. I believe you play golf, or we used to both be members at Stoke, right?
Yeah,
Before sadly
correct.
that went up in flames. But
I know.
I'm still bummed about that. But anyway, if you've got tight internal rotators of your shoulders, for example, example, you can't put the club in the correct position.
Yeah,
so that people can really comprehend. And so for me, the same's true of the mind. If you live inside of a world and a narrative of you're not good enough, you're not wanted, you're not going to be okay, then that equally delineates what becomes available for you.
So funny enough, back to golf. So yesterday I've taken the twins. We've got 6-year-old twins. They're going to be 7 on Friday, and they both want golf clubs for their birthday.
This coming Friday.
Yeah, which is
happy birthday, fellow Virgos.
Yeah, fellow Virgos indeed.
Yes.
Boo and Walt, and we were on the driving range yesterday, and of course they swing so freely because they're 6 and they don't care.
Yeah.
But they do. They swing and they swing and they swing. Then they step up to the ball and they try and hit the ball as opposed to swinging the club.
Yes.
Because the ball gets in the way of their swing, and we can get in the way of ourselves. And that's what we habitually get up and get in the way of ourselves. And you coach people out of the way of themselves.
Yes.
Are there any sort of headlines to that? Are there any sort of common traits to us getting in our own way?
Yeah, it's just the human disposition. It's part of, like in Zen Buddhism, they'll say, what are the 4 noble truths? I think one is that to be human is to suffer. I mean, we're here in this dimension. You arrived, I would assert, without sounding too esoteric, but because you're a limitless, timeless being who's entangled in these beliefs of inadequacy, insecurity, and scarcity. And they said, planet Earth is the most, what place, and that's the perfect arena for you to get triggered so that you can realize, oh, I'm a divine being and there's nothing wrong with me. It's quite simple, really.
It's quite simple. You did an event on Saturday where you invited people on to the stage.
Yes.
And what happens in those scenarios? Do they have to stay up there till you sort them out in the briefest possible way you can?
Yeah.
Or sometimes do you say, this is work in progress, we have to leave it now?
It depends on the extent to which somebody has been, living a life within that conditioned trauma. Like, obviously some, sadly, kids go through horrific things, and in other lives, it's sort of somewhat benign. I mean, my mum died when I was 7 of cancer. My dad, he died on the Herald of Zeebrugge disaster. When I was 17, went to work, I never saw him again. I would still not say that's one of the most abhorrent childhoods. I hear people go through all sorts of abuse, sadly. So it depends on the severity of what people have been through, and then also the age. The older we get, the more we tend to have evidence for why we can't do things, or that things aren't going to go our way. Kids like your twins, I'd love to see them swing, but they don't have so much in the way. They haven't accumulated all of the data that shows that they're not good enough and who and so is going to be more successful for them yet. They're still in this world of pure imagination. So it can take a while for people of a slightly more senior disposition, shall we say.
Yeah.
The couple of people I had up on stage at my events, one was a 59-year-old woman who'd grown up in Zimbabwe in a war zone, and her nervous system was relating to life as though she was still there. Right, so in anxiety, in a constant state of fear, didn't want to leave the home. And that took about 30 minutes to help her see that the fundamental prison of I'm not safe wasn't true anymore. It was appropriate for a child who's very scared and saw her animal shot. That's horrific and tragic. But now, as a 59-year-old woman who's got her own daughter, her own family, it's not appropriate. And then a 27-year-old girl got up who grew up in Poland, and she's struggling to find work. She's like, it's really hard for me to find work. And I helped her see that's not true. That's a reflection of her history she hasn't let go of, right? Even making the statement, it's hard for me to find work, is her perpetuating the limitation. So that took about 15 minutes before she was just, full of joy and just was like, oh, I don't have anything to worry about. My future's amazing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And do you know that's going to happen? Can you see it? Can you spot the patterns when somebody comes on stage? Do you know where you're going to go? Do you know where you're going to end up, actually?
To a certain degree, yeah. It's sort of like a little bit of, subconscious magic, right? Like the Copperfields of the world and the Blaines, they all know how the story ends, shall we say. The rest is entertainment.
It's posturing.
So, yes, and taking and distraction. So for me, I get a very quick sense of what someone's struggling with the way that they speak, because our words are an extension of our identity. So if somebody starts to say something, I mean, one of the first things she said was, it's hard for me to get work. And then she said, whenever I do get work, it's very labor intensive and it's usually minimum wage. So now I've immediately got a sense of her history, and the fact that she's attracted those situations immediately shows me what she must think of herself. Because obviously if somebody thought the world of themselves, they wouldn't attract those circumstances, or would they even entertain them?
Yeah.
So now I know that she probably doesn't have a great sense of self-value, and so I just, through conversation and questioning, will slowly get her to reveal her own constraints.
You do say seemingly outrageous those things, and then and then you bring in a truckload of well, here's why I say that.
Yeah.
And one of the standout things you said on Rongan's podcast, the first and the second time you were on, was the fact that there is no such thing as problems.
Yeah.
And then, which is a big old thing, isn't it? Because people listening with illnesses or bereavements, and they go, "What the heck do you mean?"
Yeah.
What the heck do you mean?
So it's said with complete compassion, and it's an empowering statement, even though it can trigger a lot of reaction. It's not in any way to condone circumstances or to dismiss that people have real challenges. You know, I grew up orphaned by the age of 17, wasn't particularly wealthy, and left nothing. You know, at 17, that's quite a scary thought, and how I'm going to pursue the rest of my life. And there are people, as I said, and I sort of alluded to earlier, children go through all sorts of abuse, from physical, emotional, sexual. It's tragic, right? And people, as you said, right now, their parents might have been diagnosed with something, or they've only got a couple of weeks to live, or somebody just got laid off or got fired, or someone's getting divorced and they got custody battle. These are real things.
Yeah.
What I want people to understand is there's no problems in reality. There's just reality, and reality at times can be very difficult. What creates human suffering is the way we relate to that, right? So as long as you think the problems are outside of you, you're actually putting yourself in a disempowering position where you become fundamentally a victim of life, which then means logically the brain is going to do what? Try and control life, which is where you have perfectionism and people pleasing and manipulation and control freaks. But that's an exhausting endeavor. You know, that's, you've obviously spent time in the States where we got to run into each other. I used to work with a baseball team in Arizona, and in the summer there it gets up to 120 degrees, 45, whatever that would be over here. And it would be akin to driving your car. You roll down the windows and you crank the air conditioning because you want to get comfortable by trying to cool down the whole of Arizona. And that's
that's a great analogy,
isn't it? And that's how people live their lives. They're under the impression that I'll only be okay when, you know, and then, but that when it's a moving goalpost, right? Life is dynamic. We're in constant flux. And so we really have the audacity to think that we know how life should be. We certainly know how our loved ones should act, right? That's for sure. You know, with the high almighty us charged with the task of telling everyone how else they should behave. Yeah. But it's all under the guise of that's how I'm going to feel safe. That's how I'm going to feel okay. That's how I'm going to feel loved. And my invitation for people is, can you find that sense of inner peace, freedom, self-worth and love in the absence of circumstances being to your liking? And that's a powerful stance.
So many questions, my friend. I had questions anyway. I got even more now that we're actually talking to each other. So Tash says, everything is neutral until you add perspective, which is exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
It's just remembering that, isn't it? Because you are moved, because we react, we're triggered, and the second you're in movement, you're no longer witness to that initial thought, which is the most useful thought, isn't it? Yeah. So when we are moving, how do we get back? How can we do that, like 20 past 10 this morning when somebody triggers us in the office, or I don't know, something happens outside on the sidewalk? Because once we're moved, we're insane almost temporarily.
I mean, quite literally, you've actually separated yourself from your inherent authentic self, right? That's the initial wound that I tell people about when we're kids. We abandon ourselves under the guise of thinking we have to become who we think we should be in order for our parents to love us and keep us safe, because as kids we're dependent, right? So it's actually a logical step, but what it does is it creates that sever between our true self and then the identity we create.
And it's instant, isn't it?
It is. And so to your point, perfectly said, and Tash's quote I love, she might have borrowed that from Shakespeare, but he said nothing is either good nor bad, but only thinking makes it so. And so again, it's not to dismiss the hardships that people deal with, but it is to empower somebody to recognize, could you actually be okay with what's going on? But to answer your question, as soon as we drift away from our authentic self and being in the moment, we're actually in psychological time. We're being triggered by something that typically is where we've been before, right? It's a reaction, meaning we've had that experience. We hear a song, we hear a sound, we smell something, and it triggers us back to a moment where we felt usually hurt or scared. Yeah. To me, they're the primordial emotions underneath everything as we walk around hurt or scared, and for most part, both.
So fear is the foundation of all less desirable emotions.
Yeah, it is absolutely the pillar upon which all of these reactions happen, right? Because if we're looking through the lens of primary, the illusion of separation, right? That is where it all stems from ultimately. You're there, I'm here, and it seems pretty obvious, right? But underneath it, just like mycelium and all the mushrooms out there, and whether you're watching Avatar or you've done mushrooms and you recognize the interconnectedness of everything, that sense of unity, then there is a holding, there's a safety, there's a belonging, and it's primal for us to want to belong. But as soon as we identify with this me, this I that we have in our head, that is looking through the lens of separation. So then the predominant emotion that has to be there is fear. Because if I'm separate from the whole, I'm not going to make it. So I have to have fear as this constant, sometimes benign or mild and sometimes severe, but it's there. And that creates suffering, which then leads into dis-ease. So that's why, my background in health and wellness and being an Ayurveda practitioner and speaking at these events with Rangan and the like, for me, it all stems from the way that you relate to yourself and life. And so to come back to your question, if you do deviate away from the moment, it's akin to having 6 shots of tequila and then someone saying, oh, be sober. It's like...
It's impossible.
You need to have time. No. I mean, you're actually going to get even more pissed off, right? It's like you've got to react because you're no longer in this sense of empowerment that I'm a sovereign being, there's nothing wrong with me, I am love itself, and there's nothing for me to fight. Of course, if it's physical, again, I write in quotes, I say if it's not life-threatening, then it is just ego-threatening. So for the most part, fortunately, it's invariably not life-threatening, so that's a clue, right? If I'm getting upset by something, it's my ego.
Totally.
And then the opportunity is once the metaphorical tequila has come out of the bloodstream, to sit down, hopefully someone who's got a bit of wisdom, and ask, why is it that keeps happening? Or why is it that when mum says this, or my brother does that, or so-and-so says that, what is it that's triggering me? That's a reverse engineering process that helps you come back to what's the fundamental lie that I'm looking through, that I'm not wanted, they don't care, I'm not loved, I'm not good enough. And then we want to investigate the validity of that, and it's never a truth.
And that's why holding hands with one person is enough, because you're either on your own or you're not. And whether you're with 1,000 people or 7.2 billion people, which is what we are anyway, you're just not on your own. So the opposite of not on your own is being with someone or some people. And that first handhold is actually like a connection with everybody else, because that other hand is the beginning of everybody else, which is the wholeness of connection.
And again, primal, we want to belong because that's how we find safety, and also the sense of communion and all the things we love in relationships. But it's an energetic experience, right? Even for people that we know, I've worked with people who've got millions and millions of fans, millions and millions of dollars, and they still end up in rehab. So, there can be the illusion of support, family, adoration, but the internal experience is still of woe and self-loathing. So for me, again, I'm just helping people to basically fall in love with themselves, which includes a part of you that doesn't feel lovable. That's the catch.
And the wars are on the inside always.
And that's why I say we'll never have world peace because people are too busy being at war within themselves.
And it's never happened. The experiments have been going on for quite a while, so let's get used to it. All right, so again, so many questions. So you talk about, again, I've heard you say to various people, you've been an amazing podcast, you're always got absolute gold in conversation. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you kindly.
No, you're very welcome. That you want to stay in the moment. We know that. Eckhart Tolle, we know that. The power of now, being in the now, and it's all right, and we all know, and we've heard it 1,000 times. However, doesn't mean that it's not okay to have goals and aspirations.
For sure.
And you say, I have goals and aspirations. I would just love to know what yours are. Because you seem so happy and so fulfilled. Are they? What goals does a guy like you need, or a human being like you need?
It's a beautiful question, and I appreciate the reflection. And I with all due respect, I love that Eckhart Tolle's been talking about the now for 30 years or something. It's like, when are people going to get there? I have many. I'm prolifically creative. For those people who are familiar with my work, they'd be like, well, the first goal he should get done is his book that he's been talking about for 15 years. So that would be nice to get complete, which I anticipate finishing at the end of this year and getting out next year.
What's it called?
It's probably, I've got a couple of working titles, but my live events and I just started my own podcast where I coach people. So it's a unique format that people are loving. And that's called Finding Freedom.
Yeah.
So that to me is my main product.
Yeah,
Freedom.
you say each podcast is called Finding Freedom With, and then the patient or the client
the guest. So
subject.
normally people from my membership, I have a membership thing called Freedom. So we like to offer it to them if they want to send in videos where they want to get coached. And I do have a couple of my sort of more highfalutin clients who'll come on. One of my clients he plays for the New York Yankees. You know, this is the quintessential athlete, and yet to talk about mindset it's inspiring for people. But for the most part, I like everyday folk who are dealing with everyday problems so that everyone can relate to them. So they do come on. But that finding freedom is sort of my raison d'etre. My purpose is to help people find freedom. So that is one of my other goals, is to remove human suffering. I know it's a very small endeavor, but I'm mad enough to think that I can at least nudge the needle on that.
Well, it takes crazy people to do this kind of stuff,
absolutely.
doesn't it? You know, and people who think they're crazy enough to do it might just pull it off.
Yeah.
You know, and you have to be a bit of a crazy, or a lot of a crazy sometimes.
It's a beautiful story. This guy's, you know, whether it's true or it's just like to make a point, but this kid is walking along a beach and it's very low tide and there's just millions or hundreds of thousands of starfish up on the sand, and he's picking up one, throwing it into the water, and there's this old man sitting on his porch on his beach house, and he sees this kid watching for about an hour, and he says, what is this kid doing? And he goes down there, and this kid keeps picking up starfish, throwing them in the water, save them from the heat of the sun. And the old man says, what are you doing? He says, I'm just throwing the starfish into the water so that they survive. And he says, if you look down the beach, this is miles of beach, there's thousands of starfish. What difference do you think it's going to make? And the kid picks one up, throws it in the water, said, made a difference for that one.
Yeah, 100% for that one.
Yeah, so for me, it's like if I can touch somebody's life, I mean, I'm so flattered. I'm still a little bit humbled and not necessarily surprised, but I get stopped all over. I was in Mallorca for a few days. I got stopped by random people there. I'm walking on the streets of London, you know, and people stop me. And that alone to me is fulfilling enough to know that something I'm saying is making a difference. And the number of people that have even some of my quotes tattooed on their bodies that have saved their life.
Give us a chink in your armor. I know you said, well, there are loads because you're very honest. But give us an obvious chink in your armor that we might not expect you to have just because of what you do for a living. And you almost have to look at yourself in the mirror, or do you have a mate who does a similar thing for you that you do for other people?
Oh, absolutely. I pride myself on being imperfect, you know. Yeah, I've got a bunch of scars. I played, you know, footy growing up. I loved it. That was the one sport I probably could have turned pro, but I went to such a knobby Saturday morning grammar school when I was a kid. I had to give it up. No, for me, one of the things that I've been working on recently is true commitment, the energy of commitment. And that's where I struggled. I was, you know, it was very easy for me to be in relationships, especially romantically, that I was so free. You know, and it's like, no worries, you know, if you're not happy, it's okay. There'll be, you know, it's like this almost philosophical approach to love. And, you know, if you're a woman on the other side of that, doesn't feel particularly safe, right? It's like, oh, this guy's so freaking free. Yeah. Where can I stand? You know,
where's the sort of commitment or investment?
Yeah, or the real you know, partnership, like that I've got you, you know. And so that's been a really beautiful education for me over the last couple of years to strengthen that. When
how have you done that?
Well, by being in a committed relationship and, you know, in the face of how should we call it, the colourful nature of the feminine, you know, they can, with the various stages of a cycle, actually, show up.
Put a pin in that. One of the questions I wrote down, which is on my phone, you just reminded me of it. What is the difference? What are the main differences between a masculine strategy to a solution and a feminine strategy to a solution?
Wow. Well, again, they're going to be obviously...
By the way, that's not based on females and males. It's based on masculine and feminine. Yeah, and you can find both within either.
Of course, it's an energetic expression,
yes, exactly.
Right? So the masculine tends to be very linear, and that's why I would assert, you know, with no disrespect to my fellow brothers out there, but women are way smarter because they're looking through a lens of quantum as opposed to linear. What our default is fixed, right? Like, okay, you hear a problem from your girlfriend, from your wife, from your sister, from your mum, and it's like, well, why didn't you just do this? And what they're asking for is just for you to understand my reality. So men tend to be more in their mind and women tend to be more in their hearts and their bodies, and they're two different languages, right? So that's where oftentimes the dysfunction that occurs in relationships is because, going back to your original question, listening isn't there, right? And especially from the masculine for the feminine. And so that's what I've learned, is to really hold space for, however illogical it seems to the masculine mind, because oftentimes I know I've heard so many things that just aren't true. but it's not necessarily the words, it's the feeling underneath it that she's asking me to understand.
Yeah.
So for a woman, I think women to women, sisters, whether they be literal or metaphorical, they know how to hold space for one another. They don't try and fix the problem or come up with some analytical approach and the 10 steps as how to avoid it in the future. They just get it. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that that's how you feel. And I feel awful that that's what you just went through. And I really understand. There's compassion. There's this sense of unity and true understanding. Whereas men tend to be a little bit more upright and, very logical. And it's like, well, did you try this? And it's like, well, you just missed exactly what I said, which is I was really hurt.
I did that last night.
Oops.
I know. I did it last night. Honestly, and I just thought, oh, Peter, why weren't you on this morning? Well, because I don't work Sundays. You clearly do, but I don't.
Yeah.
There was an issue today about childcare and about pickups, and I just chimed in with, well, the blah, blah, blah. And Tash just grabbed me by the arm and said, don't worry, we've got this.
Right.
And I just... it was the opposite of a mic drop. It's like I pick up my mic and just walk out, literally bring it here to central London and do a show and just yak on here with you. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, and yet it's the beauty of why relationships are the catalyst, I think the ultimate catalyst for our own realization.
What's the best golden bridge for partners, whether they be male, female, whatever? What's the best golden bridge of harmony for us to meet on? Is there a go-to in any situation, do you think?
Yeah, it might seem counterintuitive to what people think I might say. It's to find the best relationship with yourself. Because otherwise it's all triggers, right? And that's why relationships are such a great catalyst for growth, because the people that become the most intimate in our lives, where we've revealed the most, right? Like literally, we're walking around with no clothes on to whatever it is you're going through when you're sick and you're upset. Everybody who sees that side of you, that's the most vulnerable that we get to be. And therefore the energetic sort of heartstrings are the most tight. And so in those relationships, it's really to what degree can I be completely okay with myself, right? And not in a way to disconnect, but to be present. Because if you're still in a world of self-doubt or self-judgment, all you're going to hear is whatever they say through those lenses. So you can't actually be with their reality. So the golden bridge is, can I get to the place of what I consider to be true love, which is to fully understand somebody else's reality?
That's a great answer, isn't it? Because your real life partner is yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the ultimate. I mean, I actually, you'll find this comical. I actually own a domain that is findtherightone.com.
Really?
Yeah, because the reason being, I'm giving away the punchline here. I wanted to be able to eventually, whether it's a book or otherwise, help people understand you're the right one.
Yeah.
Because if you're trying to find the right one in a sea of 7.2 billion people, good luck. Oh my God, it's amazing. I found them. They go to the same coffee shop as me, and then they're in the same, postcode.
Yeah.
Oh, what are the chances?
Yeah.
They don't live in
it's
Azerbaijan.
really the stars, man.
and then you move to Australia, and I fell in love again. Oh, the right one moved with you. And it's like, no, you're the right one, and everyone else is just a catalyst to reveal where you're not free.
Peter, we're almost done. We've got 30 seconds. Do you want to impart anything out there, to get anything out there, or?
Just, you're all free pretending you're not. You're all love, looking for love, and as Rumi said, don't seek for love, but seek for all the barriers that you've built against it.
He's quite good, this guy, isn't he? Do you think so? That's why he's quite popular, you know that? He's very, very popular. Catherine says, I was orphaned at 17. I totally agree with everything being said this morning. Sarah says, this is an amazing chat. So interesting. Lisa Jane, what are Peter's thoughts on managing burnout? Can you give us 30 seconds on that?
I'll give you more burnout in 30 seconds.
Please.
Burnout is a byproduct, especially with your adrenals, of the fact that you're trying to make it in life, you're trying to survive, which means you're under the impression there's something wrong with you and there's something wrong with your life, and both are false. You get to be you, there's nowhere else to be, and as a result, your whole adrenal system can relax.
Yeah, it's so important, isn't it? Our kids, again, the twins, they have this amazing coach on a Friday night football, and I was standing right behind him for the first time in a year on Friday, and I didn't realise what he said to the kids in between. So Boo, who's our little girl, she'd make a tackle or she'd make a shot or she'd have the ball. He'd say, great tackle, Boo, now relax. And then somebody else would get the ball and he'd go, amazing shot, now relax.
Right.
Because you can't play football for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And if you look at professional footballers, they spend a lot of time walking around, and they call their genius, their talent, and their energy into action when it's required.
Yeah.
And that's the adrenal thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And if we just take a breath and we calm down and we sit and we enjoy the view and we enjoy our roots into the ground, then everything gets easier, and we choose our moment and we're better for it, and we can turn up fully, and then we can repose back to being present.
It's like the gazelle being chased by the lion, you know, when they're done, if they're assuming they make it, they shake it all out, they go back to grazing.
Shake it out.
Shake it out, baby.
That's a shaming thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you make a mistake or you embarrass somebody, you don't mean to, you just shake it out because you feel bad for the rest of the day. But if you shake it out, you feel better instantly.
The thing I want to people to hear or understand is that they're predominantly living like a gazelle. It's constantly being chased. And that's why there's burnout.
Right. Where are you going to chase off to next?
I'm off to where I grew up, Old Dover.
Yeah, are you going to go to Dover?
Today I'm going
gosh.
down to St Margaret's Bay where I haven't been there for so long.
You're going to have the best day, man.
I know, and then I go across to I'm half Belgian. My mum was from Antwerp, my dad from England, so I'm going to go and take the ferry tomorrow across to Calais and drive to see family. My only living relative, my uncle in Belgium.
Good for you. What's his name?
Michel, Uncle Michel.
Okay, love it. And then are you Santa Fe?
No, I'm in Colorado. So then
okay.
I fly back to the States and get back on hopefully finishing my book, putting more of this fantastic content in my membership program, Freedom, that I'd love people to check out if they want to see it. And
all right, so go to petercrone.com, just Peter Crone, CRONE.com, at Peter Crone on Insta. Very big on Insta, very big on all the podcasts. You got your own podcast now, which is great.
Just started, yes.
And you've got a community of people enjoying up to your community.
Yes, with over 100 hours of, if you want to learn about anxiety, relationships, health, depression, financial freedom, there's 100 hours. And I put all of my live events. So the 2 that I did here in London, they'll get recorded, they get thrown in there.
Love it.
Doing my best to help those starfish out there.
All right, mate. Great to see you.
A pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. And shout out for Tash for putting us together as well.
Yeah, no, she did, didn't she?
Yeah.
You're the first and only guest Tash has actually booked.
Well, no pressure. I actually didn't mess it up.
One and done, I would say, wouldn't you? Peter Crone, let's hear it for Peter, please, if you don't mind. Okay. We've got a tune, and then we've got in for Ryan Tuberty, Angela Scanlon, and then in for the mighty Middle Miss, Emma B, and then Ben Jones at 4 o'clock evening drive. That's been us. We are Monday and done. See you Tuesday. Goodbye.